Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we're going to be doing a first look at I'm calling it a midweek magazine, but this is a special type of magazine. It is from MMP, The Gamers, and it is an Operational Matters is the title, and it is an Operational Combat Series guide. So OCS, of course, is kind of the, I guess, top of the pyramid of the games or game series that were created by Dean Essig and his company, The Gamers, that of course was merged into Multiman Publishing, and all of their stuff is now done through MMP. But as I said, it's kind of the top of the pyramid in terms of general complexity, I guess. BCS, Battalion Combat Series, is probably equally complex, I guess. I don't think that really they're super complex, but the general perception is they're harder to learn. BCS is that way largely because it's very creative, I guess, in the way that it looks at combat. More on BCS later because I'm currently learning that system so that I can do some video on Inflection Point. But to get back to the matter at hand, Operational Matters, we're going to take a look at this. It's still in its plasticky, crinkly shrink wrap here. I'm going to open it up. We'll go through it, and then I will plan on doing some gameplay of the game that's included in here, which is Sicily II. Now I have this one and the second one, which is also called Operational Matters. That one is also an OCS guide, but it includes the game Luzon, and we'll take a look at that sometime down the road. But for now, we're going to start with this one right here. If we flip it over to look at the back, you can get a general idea, and I don't know why my focus keeps doing that, but this one talks about what's in here. So you get articles on a wide variety of Operational Combat Series games, including all of the ones listed here. Then you have the magazine contains the redesigned OCS game Sicily II. So this is an older game, Sicily, that was designed by Dean Essig, and this is kind of an updated version of that. And it says here it's quite different from Dean Essig's original game from back in 2000. It features a revised order of battle, modified rules, and a new map. The most obvious change is in scale. Hexes are now 3.5 miles across, and there are 2 turns per week. The original had 2.5 mile hexes and 4 turns per week. This makes for a smaller, faster game that conforms to the scale chosen for Beyond the Rhine and the upcoming game set in Western Europe. We think Sicily II is a perfect way to give new recruits their baptism of fire in the fire of OCS, and also a worthy entry in the series for players who have already earned their stripes. So this just talks about the game, right? The magazine includes 2 counter sheets and a 22 by 34 inch map. So we're going to primarily be looking at the game in here, but I will also kind of go through some of the articles and what they're talking about. So let me rip this open and we'll look at what's inside here. Okay, so the magazine comes with the counter sheets inside it and the map. So I'm going to put those to the side for the moment so that we can concentrate on the magazine itself. Now, it is fairly thick, right? Even with the material out of it, we're running 78 or so pages. Yeah, 79 if you include the back cover. So let's just kind of flip through it in case you're wondering what's actually in here. Right, so you've got your typical editor type stuff here on the front, right? The editorial information, the folks that worked on it, and then the list of all the articles, and there are, as mentioned on the back, articles on many of the games that are in the OCS series. You've got notes and credits here. Mark Milka, is the editor-in-chief here, or senior editor, right? So the Enduring Legacy is the first one. Then we've got Sicily II, and of course that is the game that's included in here. And Learning the Ropes at Primasol Bridge by Rick Van Dyke. And so you get a little bit of a look at kind of what is going on the map, right? You have the amphibious landing as part of this game, but you can also, I believe, start after the landing has already taken place if you wanted to skip that part. So this will be kind of your first look if you are new to the series, as I am. This would be your first look at kind of how the game works. Of course, you need the rules and the charts and everything. And it says on the back that the OCS rulebook and charts are not included. These can be downloaded from the MMP support website if you do not already have these. And they are indeed on the website. I've been going through BCS material a lot lately, as I want to make sure I have a good grip on that system before playing it. And my first impression of that, just a slight sidebar here, is that looks like a fantastic system. So I can't wait to do that, but I figured I wanted to do something kind of, in the same vein, sort of, but I don't want to say easier, but this is a magazine format. It fits my midweek magazine. So let's go with a midweek magazine look at this OCS offering here. Okay, so talks about things like weather, first turn, determination, your aircraft refit phase, reinforcement phase, movement phase. So you're going through the various phases of the game. Supply, of course, is very much a key thing in the OCS system. That is one of the main things that separate it from some of the other ones. It is, I've heard people refer to it as a spreadsheet game or an accountant's game with the tracking of supply points and so forth. I don't have a particular comment on that, as I have not yet really delved into it, other than kind of just a general overview of looking at things that other people have either written or done on video about the series. I know Ardwolf is a big OCS guy, and he's done some content on it, and I've watched some of his stuff on it. So I have kind of a general view. So you've got examples in here where he's talking about specific things that are happening as he's playing through. So this is kind of like almost an AAR and little rules overview, and it runs a solid 5 pages or so, I think. It starts here on page 4 and runs through 9, so that would be about 6 pages. And so you get a good look here at the very familiar look of maps from MMP. It's got a very, very consistent look. I'm very used to it. I've played a lot of the SCS games. Then you have modus pocus, mode selection in OCS. So it talks about modes, right? Like combat mode, move mode, reserve mode, strat mode, the final voluntary mode, right? Kind of goes through that. This one is from Jim Kuchar. And if I botch anybody's names, I will apologize ahead of time. So again, you have a lot of different things in here. Untwisted OCS combat table. So we're going to take a look here at the combat table. Some people would say CRT. I think I've consistently seen it called combat table in BCS and OCS. So the surprise roll during combat. So obviously that's a mechanic in the combat resolution. Means it's difficult to estimate the likely combat result based on some of the stuff that Dean Essig wrote in his design notes for some of the various games I played that he designed, that he liked to try and introduce some fog of war type things, a little uncertainty perhaps would be a better way to put it, in the standard. We were all familiar with it. If you played war games, you're familiar with the counting factors and trying to maximize odds. And I want to get to that 3-1 over the 2-1, so I'm going to add this extra unit and stuff. And he always seemed to be looking for ways to make that less important. And I know other designers have, of course, tackled that particular issue in various ways themselves. I don't think he was unique in any way in that regard, but he did come up with some interesting mechanics, particularly as it comes to the BCS series. And we've got a little bit of a history here, and you can see 88, right? The very first entry, Dean Essig tires of playing chunky, chrome-weighted, unrealistic operational war games. 1988 is the official founding of the gamers. Over the next few years, Dean brainstorms and tortures others with his ideas on a new gaming system that could be used for a series of mobile warfare games. First game was Guderian's Blitzkrieg, followed by Enemy at the Gates, of course, Stalingrad game. And that introduced the 2.0 OCS rules, and it runs all the way through 2016 with Tunisia version 4.2 of the rules. Then we have artillery and air barrage. So you see that this is, as they mentioned on the back, this is a good thing to have, not only for people who are learning the system that are new to the system, but also for people who perhaps are more experienced with the system, just giving maybe a little bit extra perspective and thoughts of things behind the mechanics, behind the numbers. This is Dick Eichenlaub on artillery and air barrage, right? Two different types of barrages. Then we have Putting Some Blitz in Your Krieg by Dean Essig himself. This was a revision of something he wrote in Operations magazine number 7 back in 1992. So we have things about narrow breach, making the narrow breach. So I'm sure this is an interesting thing. Then you've got Taking It to the Germans from Tony's Barashuk. Another one from Operations, this one from 42, which came in 2002. OCS turn summary. Photocopy this page to help you keep track of where you are in your game. The form is designed for those new to OCS and those with aging memories. What if you're like me and you might have both of those things? I don't know. Actually, my memory is pretty decent, but I am getting older, as are we all. Tunisia, the grand old lady of OCS. And you can see this is from Dave Jeffrey, and it talks about Tunisia specifically, and probably Tunisia 2, I would guess. Yeah, that's the Tunisia 2 map. And I've heard Tunisia, I think, is one of the ones that some of the OCS vets would recommend as a good early game for newbies. Then we have Burma from Juha Metsikalis, and I probably messed up his name, and I apologize, as I said before. But this, yeah, on Burma, right? I've heard Burma is a good kind of intro-y type one too, perhaps. Or maybe I'm just getting myself mixed up. But then we have the rules themselves here, the game-specific rules for Sicily II. Right? This is kind of a very familiar look too, if you're familiar with any of the games from the gamers. You start off with specific modifications of the general rules. So your case numbers here will match exactly what's in the OCS main rules, the series rules. So you can say, okay, we have the 1.2 series rules. This is how those are modified for this specific game in that section. And so you'll go through and you'll see they'll skip areas, and so you have a lot of ones, and you have twos, then we have some threes and some fours and some fives, and then we get into the scenarios. So 6 scenarios. Here's your developer notes. And your TEC, placement tables, rebuild tables, amphibious landing table. And we've got Huba's Pocket here, the German setup and strategy from Tony Zabarchuk from Operations number 41 back in 01. Right, so again, you have information in here on all the games. If you have these games, this would probably be really cool things to have. Here's Sicily, the original version, I guess. Triumph and Folly at a Grander Scale by Mark Milka. Or maybe it's Milk. I'm apologizing ahead of time if I mess up anybody's name. It is not intentional. Korea, This Kind of War by John Kisner. Now, this is one that is still available, the Korea game. Most of the OCS games, if you go to the MMP website, are sold out. But Korea and Crimea and the Forgotten Battles, I think, are the ones that are currently available, plus this magazine and its follow-up with Luzon. But Korea is an interesting one, and being that it was so close in terms of time and technology and tactics and so on to the Second World War, it's a good fit for this system. Then we have DAK, or Das Africa Corps, from Dave Jeffrey. It says, his first line says, DAK may be the most playable, enjoyable game in the whole series. Why? It has a low counter count, interesting history, diverse units, a great ebb and flow to it, and it has more chrome than a 55 Buick Roadmaster, and all of it matters to the play of the game. And it's got that typical wide, narrow North Africa war game map. They're always really long, and some of them are so long it's hard to get it on the table. But yeah, that's just the nature of North Africa games. Guderian's Blitzkrieg II and Case Blue. So this is the Summer of 42 campaign from a Red Army point of view by Thomas Buettner. And yeah, you've got various things. Here's a look at the map. So this is one that I enjoy, kind of that 42 campaign, whether it's, the early stuff with firing up Case Blue and driving to Stalingrad, or the fighting in Stalingrad, and then Operation Uranus and all the stuff that came after that. There's a reason why that campaign gets so much attention. It's a very interesting one. Even Inflection Point has a touch on that from both sides, kind of, the early side and the late side, with, of course, 11th Panzer's famous drive to relieve the pocket that ended up kind of smashing part of the Soviet attack, but also weakened the northern piece of the pincer that was supposed to relieve the Sixth Army. It was not able to do so. Baltic Gap from John Kisner. You can see here, right? Pretty good look at the map there. And we're getting close to the end. The Blitzkrieg Legend, The Big Push by Tony Burkett, who has designed several of the more recent OCS games, including Crimea and I think Forgotten Battles and the third Winter. So this is his article on the Blitzkrieg Legend. That's the end here. And this tells you the ones that are available for order as of the time when this was actually published. And you do have Beyond the Rhine, Guderian's Blitzkrieg, the Blitzkrieg Legend, and so on. And then, of course, we're back at the back. Now let's take a quick look at the contents. You get your standard 2024 reprint in this case. Operational Matters Volume 1 with Sicily II. Any issues, contact info to reach out to MMP. Here is the well, there's two character sheets. I almost said single, but there are two. We'll see the second one in a moment, so you can see some of the units here. We've got some Brits with some trucks. Even a little donkey there. You can look at all of this, and we'll go over what all of the symbology and everything means. If you're new and not familiar with OCS, we'll go over that when we do our gameplay. Over here we have some Italians. Well, the Americans, of course, and they are familiar green. And then we got some Italians over here, and of course some Germans. And we have more stuff on the second sheet. Got some aircraft. Right? Again, Italians and Germans. Ground strikes. These would be the Brits in the kind of orangey brown or tan. And some Americans, including B-17s. Some various aircraft carriers. We got a couple carriers. We got some cruisers, some destroyers there as well. Oh, the famous ducks, Duck Ws. Airfield markers, I'm assuming. Kind of what they look like. Supply, right? Supply is big in this series, so there's plenty of that. Markers for that. right? The famous DG counters for disorganized. And the backs. Did I show you the backs of these? I don't think I did. So let's take a quick look at the backs of these. Some of them, of course, have the stripes on them. But you can see kind of what the backs of the counters look like. Okay, now we have the map. And this is a single mapper, which is good for a magazine format. Okay, I probably will have to widen my shot, so I'll do that in a moment. But it has the entire island of Sicily on the map here. So let's zoom out and you can see this. Okay, here is our map. Lays out pretty flat. It is paper, of course. It's not mounted. But yeah, it lays pretty flat. You slap some plexi on here, it'll be fine. As I said, it covers the entire island. There's Corleone right there. That always jumps out at me because of The Godfather. You know, but you've got the main areas, of course, because you have the whole island, so everything is here. Palermo, obviously. Messina up here. You've got Syracuse over here, and all the various gulfs and beaches where the landings took place. Plenty of boxes to hold various things, right? You've got Sardinia airfields here, Central Italy airfields for, or Central Italy for airfields and ground units, Southern or South Italy airfields here. Over here is our turn record track, running from July 10th to August 31st. Available air barrages, available shipping, the Trapani port capacity and damage, Palermo port cap and damage, Marsala over here. You got your terrain key, right? Always important. Tunisia, right? So this would be Axis rather, German and Italian up here. This would be the Allies down here. You've got your Tunisian airfields as well as ground units, floating forces, so your forces that are offshore but available to come onshore at some point, I would assume. Pantelleria airfields, Malta airfields, and then over here you've got a tow holding box for ground units. And again, more port cap and damage here to trace the damage to the various ports as the fighting goes on. You got a scatter diagram over here for your artillery and so on. Compass rose right there. Same thing over here. As you would expect, terrain is clear and easily determinable by looking at the terrain key with the colors. You know, the colors will give you most of what you need in terms of open, low hills, rough, and mountains. Then you've got things like lava flow, which is probably somewhat unique to a volcanic island like Sicily, which would be up here on Mount Etna, of course. And then the various other things: roads, tracks, railroads, rivers, cities, villages, ports, etc., etc. So that is my look at Operational Matters, Volume 1, and the Sicily II game that comes with it. So do expect gameplay on this at some point. Hopefully not too far in the future. As I said, I am having a main effort into learning BCS, but hey, we'll try and tackle OCS too. Why not, right? I like to set high goals. But that will do it for now. Before I go, I want to thank you for watching. Ask that you might consider liking this video to help kind of raise its visibility, I guess, on YouTube. Anything you can do in that regard would be greatly appreciated. There's also the possibility of sharing it, hyping it, which I'm still kind of unclear on what that specifically means, but hey, it's a form of promotion, I guess. And of course, the big ask is subscription. If you would like to be a subscriber, that would be fantastic. There is a subscribe button you can click, and you can click the bell to get notified when new videos appear on the channel. But even if you decide that you don't want to do any of that stuff, hopefully you'll come back and check out something else down the road. Time for my shout out to my channel members. Greatly appreciate their support. And yeah, I always give them their due here at the end of the videos. But that's it for now. I'm done. I will do Operational Matters Volume 2, probably in the not too distant future, just to kind of get them both out there. But we are done with this one. So until next time, I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered, and may your dice stay hot.